Hello, everybody. I'm so excited that you are here for our big catalog launch. I am going to be sharing with you the stamp set that I actually got for On Tour, which is new to this catalog, and it is called Limited Edition. And there's all these great stamp sets in here that work really well on the backs of your cards, and I'm going to show you some other ways to use them as well. This is called an Angel Policy stamp set, and there's usually one in every annual catalog. And I'm gonna kind of, as we go, explain the Angel Policy a little bit because it's something that can be kind of confusing to people. Now, the Angel Policy is basically the rules that allow you to make cards or other projects to sell. So what you'll see is on some of these stamp sets, they say copyright Stampin' Up! On the bottom, and that's the main part of the Angel Policy, is that anytime that you make a card or any item really and sell it, that actual physical item, you have to include that copyright statement on there. Now, there's been lots of different Angel Policy stamp sets over the years, so if you have an older one, you can totally use that older one. What you can't do is you can't use a stamp set, say, that you had custom made, or a stamp that you had custom made to do that. You also can't print it either on a label or directly onto the back of your card. Just using your printer. That doesn't count either. It has to be a Stampin' Up! Stamp set that says copyright Stampin' Up! On there. It can be retired though. So that's the basics of the Angel Policy. So you saw I stamped my limited edition and my copyright on the back of this card. Now I want to do some stamping on the front. And I forgot to grab one very crucial piece of equipment here. And I forgot to grab my Stampin' Mist. And I do have a microfiber here. I haven't unpacked all of my craft supplies yet, so I'm just using a microfiber instead of a Stampin' Scrub to clean my stamp set. Now, that copyright is great for the back of my cards. Oops, and I just gave away my secret here. And it makes that super convenient to be in compliance with that Angel Policy, but you don't always want it. Sometimes you want to use just that image. So you can mask your images or, partial stamp them or whatever. I just take a pair of scissors and cut that piece off. Just a regular old pair of scissors, chop it off. As you saw, I can just put that back on there on the clear block and use the stamp as a whole as well. But for the rest of this, I'm actually just going to use the image part of this. Now, what I like about this stamp is that it kind of looks like the old mail canceling stamps. So what I'm going to do, or like a passport stamp or something, I'm going to stamp it in crumb cake all over a standard crumb cake card base. And slowly but surely, we're going to build up this kind of texture, and I'm just kind of rotating it as I go a bit so that they're not all facing the same way. Go in and fill in some of these little spots. There we go. So now I've got a bit of a textured background, and I'm going to clean this one more time and stamp it. I've pre-stamped one of my images here, and this is just in Memento Tuxedo Black, but I also want to stamp it in my color. Now, when I was going through and picking colors for this, I was like, how can I say no to the in colors? So I actually have a brand new ink pad here that I'm going to open up. This is Orchid Oasis. So this is one of the new in colors. And if you've never opened a Stampin' Up! Ink pad before, it kind of opens like a compact. They swing open like that, and then once they're all the way open, you slide them across. They do have these labels on the back, so you can actually label in whatever language you want to. I like to peel off part of that. And the label with the words, if I can get it off, that is, there we go. The label with the words goes along the front. Now, of course, I've got this open, so I'm going to make sure I know what the front is. There we go, so that when they're all stacked up, you can see what color it is. And there's also 2 blank labels. I'm actually just going to peel that right off. I don't need that part of it. That won't come off my fingers. Stick it, no, trying to stick it to my table so it stays out of the way. There's also these 2 blank pieces, and these are actually for inside the case or along the side. So what you can do is you can take this piece and stick it inside, because when you're actually stamping, it can be challenging to see what the actual ink color is. So this lets you see what the actual ink color is. I think that's pretty cool. And we're just going to lightly tap on here. Yeah, they're pretty juicy when they're new. And stamp that on there. And that's that beautiful kind of purpley blue color that is just so lovely. Now we're going to cut this one out with a circle die. This one I'm going to fussy cut just the flower. So I'm going to chop the bulk of that out. And then, I'm not usually a huge fussy cutter, but this flower is pretty simple and pretty forgiving. So I figured it was worth it to just fussy cut this little guy. Because then what we can do is we can pop it up onto the black layer, or the black and white layer, as you will see in just a moment. Now, all of these sentiments in this stamp set are kind of along that handmade for you, and there's a ton of different ideas out there with how to use them, not just for the backs of your cards. So I'll show you this one here, and then if you go on Pinterest, or even just Google Images on Facebook, that kind of stuff, you'll see there's lots of different ideas out there that you can do with this stamp set, or any stamp set really, because let's face it, you can never have too many stamping ideas. Okay, I think I'm ready to die cut. So I've pre-die cut myself a little crumb cake layer here with the stylish shapes. That's the new stitched shapes. And then I'm just using my mini machine because all of the dies that I have to cut are mini. So we're going to cut this guy here with my circle die. So we're just going to line that up. And I'm going to see if I can fit at least one other on here. I'm also going to, from the tailored tags, cut out some circles, and that's just in Orchid Oasis cardstock because we're going to keep everything coordinating. And of course, I don't have my magnetic plate yet, so try to keep that lined up. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. Everything is handmade, and if it's too perfect, then nobody's going to believe that you made it yourself. Okay, shifting everything on my table here. Alrighty. So I've got my little circle, I've got my little flower, and then I've got these little donut pieces. At first, I wasn't too crazy that this cuts out 4 every time. And then I realized that I always lose pieces, so it's probably for the best. If I'm doing a freestanding tag, I'll do one on either side, but for this one, I'm doing our tag in the coordinating glimmer paper. It's this beautiful ombre glimmer paper, and it's going to be glued down on the card, so I only actually need one of those little circle reinforcements. Now, if you haven't used Stampin' Up! Glimmer paper in a couple of years, you probably don't know that it's actually a new texture, and it doesn't lose the glitter, which is super awesome. Like you can literally scrape away at these glimmer papers and you're not going to end up with glitter everywhere, which is really cool because I don't know about you, but every other glimmer paper I've ever used has just shed glitter like craft herpes, we call it. Alrighty, and there's my tag, and that's it for die cutting. Perfect. So we can put the mini machine away, and we're actually already on to assembly here. So I'm going to start putting some of my little pieces together. I'm going to glue my little circle onto my tag. Now, if I had been smart, I would have put tear and tape or multi-purpose adhesive sheets on the back of my cardstock, but I was not that proactive today, so I'm just using glue. But tear and tape or multi-purpose adhesive sheets on the back would make that even easier. It's pretty easy. Now I'm going to cut some ribbon for my tag. Let's use some of the baker's twine too. Big whole schwack of baker's twine. I love that you can get those in all the in colors. Now this is my little tag ribbon trick that I'm going to show you here. I'm going to take a glue dot, and with my scissors I'm just going to kind of fold it in half or roll it, and I'm going to put it right up at the top of my little circle here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me something to actually attach this ribbon to while I'm working so that I don't have to be an octopus and try to hold on to 12 things with 8 arms. And then I'm just gonna push that down, and then that's solid, it's on there, it's not going anywhere. And when I take my baker's twine around here, I just have to tighten that on there. I don't have to be all worried about that shifting around and whether it's going to stay in the right place. I'm going to tie my bow in my baker's twine. And just to make Kara happy, I'm going to leave this relatively big for me. It's probably still not big enough for her, but we'll leave the loops and the tails fairly long. And I'm going to put another glue dot on the back here just to hold that all together. Sometimes the only thing that's holding us together is glue dots. And there we go. Then some glue on the back here. This is the other thing I like about this newer style of glimmer paper is the back isn't kind of plasticky, it's more cardstock. So it's way easier to glue onto things because the adhesive actually sticks to it. Now that we've got the tag on the card, and I've just put it on the corner there, I'm going to trim these tails up here so that they're not all over the place. And now we're just layering our circles. Is this really all? Ugh, this card is deceivingly simple. I thought this was going to take me so long to do, and it was so complicated because there's so many different pieces, but it's actually not. It's actually pretty simple. I'm going to put this just kind of half on, half off that tag. Do the same thing, and don't forget, you can always use the sides of your dimensional sheets. Don't waste those edges. They are perfectly usable. We're going to pop this little circle right in the middle there. And then for this little guy, I actually need like a half a dimensional. So I'm just going to trim a little piece. One of the full-size ones, I could have cut it in half. The edges, I just trim a little smaller. And then we're going to line that up on there. So this is a pretty pretty fluffy card. There's lots of layers. And now I'm going to go in with these beautiful dots, again, in all the in colors because you like everything to be matchy-matchy, right? And there we go. So that is my card. Easy peasy, super simple. This is the one in Orchid Oasis. I also did it in Starry Sky and Sweet Sorbet and Tahitian Tide and Parakeet Party. So you can see you could do any colors really. I just decided to go with the ink colors because I had this fun glimmer paper. You could use a designer series paper in the background and whatever embellishments you wanted. But I love this. Super simple, but it has lots of little pieces, lots of different texture. So it's kind of interesting. And you get to use a stamp set that you wouldn't normally think about using for the fronts of your cards. So you could do that with any of those stamp sets as well. I just like that limited edition because it's got that pattern in the back. Now before I leave, I have one more tip, and that is don't leave your envelopes naked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my plain white envelope and I'm going to stamp on it. Now I want to stamp on just the flap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide a piece of grid paper in there. And then when I go in and do my stamping, I can stamp without getting ink where I don't want it. Especially for these ones that have like words and images, you might not necessarily want that stamp to go over onto the front or onto the back. This is a great way to kind of mask that part. And then of course you could still put some on the front if you wanted, just like that. There we go. So now you have a little decorated envelope. I did decorate the inside as well, and I'll show you that on the one that I'm actually finished. This one, obviously I don't have anything on the inside, but I just added a little partial stamp, and this one I actually stamped off. So the Starry Sky, I stamped it off, and then I stamped it inside, and that's the little extra look there. So there we are. We've got another, I think, 16 hours worth of presentations and projects today. So I hope that you can stick around. If you get to see some of them as we post them, that's awesome. They will be available after the fact as well. We've got some prize patrols, all kinds of fun stuff happening. So I can't wait for everybody else's presentations and to spend the day with you guys. Happy stamping. Bye.